Hey everyone, how's it going? Today I'm talking about VHS 94, which was released in 2001 after about, I want to say, 7 years after VHS Viral. This is an anthology film series, a lot of short horror films, found footage, oftentimes analog horror, grainy, handheld, tape looking footage, but not always. VHS Viral was a disaster, kind of killed the franchise, and it was the last one I watched. I kind of wrote the series off. It's never been a particularly great series. I don't think any of these segments are mind blowing, but there's a lot of fun, creative, experimental pulp horror in these. VH Viral was just so bad, kind of killed the series, and then it came back later, and now there's one every year. And I think this series has really gained popularity in the past years. So that's cool. I had never seen VHS 94. I kind of wrote this series off, and especially seeing that they were putting one out every year made me think that they were just churning these out now and found out a way to franchise them, which I guess they have, but I decided to watch VHS 94, and honestly, it's a really big surprise. It tracks with the series where it's not really great. Like I said, it's pulpy, popcorn entertainment. There's nothing really mind blowing here. But it was really enjoyable to watch, especially compared to the absolute dumpster fire that was VHS Viral. So I'm going to go through and talk about all of these short films. There's four. And I'll talk about the frame narrative, which I'm not really going to factor into my rating. There's always a frame narrative in these films. I'm never a big fan of them. We have one called Holy Hell, which is a group of SWAT team members going into this abandoned building facility, and there's these remnants of a sort of cult in there. This is the worst frame narrative I've seen. I think it does take some risks. The setting is kind of creepy. SWAT team horror. I don't know if I've ever really seen that before. I'm sure that exists, but I thought it was interesting at first, but the script is just bad. And this is a problem that I have with a lot of these found footage flicks is when they let them improvise is when you really get great performances. And when these are over scripted or overly technical in the execution is when these start to falter. And this thing is totally scripted throughout, as far as I can tell. It's weak writing, and the acting is really rough. I mean, really rough. Just like in the other films, you go back to this after every short film, and the story progresses as you watch the movie, and it just has such a bizarre, kind of weird twist at the end. And yeah, it's incredibly rough to watch, especially towards the end, with some incredibly bad acting, with just terrible expository dialogue. This is terrible and gets a 1 out of 5. And I'm going to spoil all of these, and that was pretty, not, I didn't spoil that, I hope. But these will all have spoilers. The first segment is called Storm Drain, and it's directed by Chloe Okuno. And it's basically local TV news reporter and her cameraman going to the sewers, the storm drain, to investigate a local myth of the Rat Man. She gets down there. It's true. It kind of works out the way we'd expect, and it's pretty insane. This is one of my favorite segments I've ever seen, next to probably Safe Haven from VHS 2. I also really like Second Honeymoon from VHS 1. This is really good. It might be my favorite or second favorite segment I've seen because it kind of hits everything I want for low budget experimental horror. It's really funny, intentionally funny. It has a lot of humor throughout. In the beginning, when the news reporter, I think her name is Holly, she's interviewing local townspeople, and there's some funny interviews. They show an artist's rendering of the Rat Man, and it's like this horrible kindergarten looking drawing is funny. And then you even have this little infomercial they threw in for like one of those what do they call them, press chops or whatever, and it almost comes across like a Tim and Eric sketch. So there's definite humor in here, which I like. But at the same time, when we get to the sewers and we see Ratma, this Rat King, it's kind of scary. Amazing creature design that you see just enough of. You see it, but it's not incredibly in your face and focus. And wow, great creature design. It's a guy in a suit. It's not CGI. It looks great. And we have an amazing face melting ending. This is great. I really like this. Is the acting amazing? No. Is the script kind of cheesy? Of course. It always isn't the case with these, but this is just like what I want to see. It really does blend dark comedy and scary, great creature design and gore very well. I love this. It's a very, very strong opening, 5 out of 5. I really like this. Next, we get to Empty Wake, which is about a woman at a funeral home running a wake. She's by herself. They told her that they wanted her to record this. That's how we get the found footage. And she finds out she's locked in the place, and the corpse breaks out of the casket and is a zombie and kills her in the end. I think all of these were shot during COVID. This one is the most apparent, the way they tried to have it be just one or two people. And they do have this isolating factor, which I think they played in, they used COVID's isolation and used that to give this isolating feel. I think they did a good job, but there's really not much that happens here. And at the beginning of this segment that the guy's coming out of the casket. You know what I mean? Again, like some of the other ones, this could go somewhere, but there's just not enough substance here, and we know what's going to happen. This didn't really captivate me. It was kind of boring to watch. I'm going to give this one a 2 out of 5. It's not terrible, but I'm not going to remember it. Next, we get to Safe Haven, I'm sorry, The Subject, which is directed by the director who did Safe Haven, Indonesian director. And Safe Haven is one of the most cherished and favorite shorts of this whole series. Subject is a little bit disappointing to me. It's a cyber horror, which is unique. I don't watch a lot of that, and I liked it. You have this mad scientist who's making human-machine combinations, and the police, a SWAT team, breaks in and tries to take it down, and the machines get let loose, and craziness happens. Again, this is one where there's more to it than maybe The Empty Wake, but ultimately it goes on a little bit too long, and it is ultimately just a slasher, which I guess is fine, but again, there's just very little of substance here. It at least tries to say something, but doesn't really commit to it. And also, this one, this is VHS 94. They're all supposed to look like they're from 1994, and this is very high definition and looks like it was shot today. So the cinematography, while it looks sharp, it shouldn't be, and it doesn't really work for me. There's some fake, tape effects thrown in that don't really make sense to me, and it feels like they tried to put this together very quickly. This is a complicated short from a technical standpoint, for the production, so maybe this was just really hard for them to put together quickly, but it doesn't end up really working. And there's a lot of gore in this one. It seems like this director likes to do that. He loves gore and, slashers and that pulpy fun. But there's a lot of bad CGI in this one. And the fact that it's so hi-fi, it doesn't really hide that. So this does not live up to Safe Haven at all. And honestly, I know people do like The Subject, and I do understand why. It actually kind of, because we're seeing things through the perspective of this one main character who's been surgically altered, we're seeing her camera eye view. It kind of does feel like a video game, like Soma or something like that, and that's neat. We even see the battery indicator, which kind of is almost like a health bar, right? But it just doesn't work for me, so I'm giving it a 2 out of 5. And we finish, only 4 in this one, with Terror. Terror is about a group of white supremacists, maybe not a doomsday cult, but white supremacist religious fanatical cult that plans to blow up a state building and a terrorist threat. And they have a vampire, and this vampire's blood is explosive to sunlight, a unique little take on vampires. And they plan to siphon his blood and use it as a bomb. So every morning they go and shoot him in the head, siphon his blood, the vampire regenerates, and they repeat the process. There's a lot of waiting around, them kind of trying out their bomb, partying, talking, and then the vampire eventually gets loose and kills everyone. I love vampire stuff. It's one of my favorite subgenres of horror, so I was really drawn to this, and I think it is really a creative take on the vampire myth. To have just the whole thing is really creative. It takes place, I think, in Michigan in the winter, so it's very cold and snowy and isolating. Um, and the vampire design at the end is fantastic, and it's gory and fun, and I think it has a great ending. So I really, really like the idea, the execution at the end, the creature design, the blood. It's fun. However, like I've been saying, this is not really ad-libbed, and not to say that good um, found footage doesn't have to be ad-libbed, but the script is really weak and the acting is weak, and it really pulls this thing down. And I think this is so creative and such a unique spin on vampire mythology, that if, man, they just tightened up the acting and let them ad lib a little bit more and make it feel more authentic, this would work so well. It'd be a great, great segment. But man, the acting and the script really pulls this down. You get really cheesy monologues and it just comes off very cheesy. I will say this one has incredibly authentic looking visuals. There's my cat telling me it's time to wrap it up. This looks like it was shot on tape 100%. It's one of the most authentic looking segments I've seen. I don't think I've really seen something this authentic since VHS, the original. It truly looks like it was shot then. And some of these, like I think Storm Drain was shot digitally and then was transferred to tape so that they could get that look and wear it out. This almost looks like it was shot on tape. It is that authentic. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. It's a middle of the road one for me. I love what the idea. I think it's very creative. I love the vampire. I just think, man, the script is really distracting, as well as some of the acting. It's kind of baffling almost. They had a really good thing on their hands and kind of blew it, in my opinion. So overall, VHS 94, I think it's a huge step in the right direction. It does track with the rest of the series. It's a very mixed series. Nothing in here is great. But I would give it a 3 out of 5. I find it on par with the first film. And I really enjoy Storm Drain and Terror. The other ones are kind of forgettable, but they're not terrible. So yeah, VHS 94, if you haven't seen it, although I just spoiled the whole movie, is totally worth checking out if you're a fan of found footage horror, anthology, and the series in general. And it's, again, a tremendous step in the right direction as compared to VHS Viral, which is a disaster of a film. So yeah, there's a couple more. There's VHS, I think, 99, 85, Beyond, and now Halloween is coming out. I have not seen any of those. I don't know if I have a way to, because they're on Shudder and I don't have that. I would like to watch them and get back to you, but I will do a review as well on Viral. I know I'm going out of order, but man, that's a bad movie, and I didn't really want to sit through it, but I think I will for posterity. So anyways, see y'all next time. Have a great day. Let me know if you've seen this and what your favorites are. I'd love to hear from you, and peace out.